Good afternoon. The speaker now is Dr. Herbert Schwabl, who will speak on Tibetan medicine in Switzerland. Perhaps you don't need any introduction because of the exhibits outside this hall of PADMA 28, you might be aware about who is here. But to give you a brief introduction, Dr. Herbert Schwabl is the director of PADMA AG, which means that he's the lineage holder of PADMA family from Siberia, the lineage holder of Dr. Carlos from Switzerland, who was the founder of PADMA AG, and who brought this Tibetan medicine in Switzerland for this kind of recognition that we got nowadays in Switzerland. It's all because of PADMA AG under his leadership and his direction. So all these things, nothing happens by coincidence. We all think that it's just by coincidence. There's some purpose. There's a connection. The connection over here is that Dr. Herbert Schwabl was born in the year 1961. And this year, 1961, was the year when Menzikang was founded. And today we are celebrating this first Sawarik per day here because it was founded in 1961. So the coming of Dr. Herbert Schwabl on this earth, particularly in the Switzerland, is not by coincidence, it's by strong karmic connection. So his connection was with Tibetan medicine, and he was a strong supporter of Tibetan community, Tibetan medicine, and one of the biggest stakeholders of Tibetan medicine. So his topic today, which we'll deliberate now, about the recognition of Tibetan medicine in Switzerland, is the one which we all Tibetan doctors over here, not just the doctors and all the institutions and the researchers and the practitioners, must see this as one of the role model for the future development of Tibetan medicine for a good manufacturing practice and good laboratory practice. So with this brief note about Dr. Herbert Schwabl, I request you to begin your deliberation. Thank you.
So thank you very much for your kind introduction. Yeah, auspicious years. 2019 is also for us an auspicious year. Before I start, of course I want to congratulate the CCTM for having the idea for the first Sovarikpa Day. I think that's really great. It was already mentioned today. It is important. It is also important that CCTM took the initiative. And of course, as another special occasion that we have today, the award nominee, the awardee, Amchi Tamdinla, as we've heard, we have to address him. Congratulations for the award. And hello to all of you. Some of you I know since quite a long time. And I want now to present you what we do in Switzerland since 50 years. We have this year, 2019, the Golden Jubilee for PADMA. PADMA works since 1969 in Europe. And there are two topics. Of course, I want to briefly show you, maybe give you an idea what it means 50 years, looking back. For those who are older, they remember those times when times were more simple than today. And 2019 also brought us the official recognition of Tibetan medicine by the state of Switzerland. And I will also tell you briefly about this. So looking back 50 years, the question is, how did this all start? 50 years. Tibetans were in Switzerland. They arrived in Switzerland. There was a small community of Tibetans at that time, but to say it very clearly, the Padma story had a different beginning. It began actually with a Christian monk. And this Christian monk from Polish origin, his name was Korwin Krasinski, he's a Polish monk, and he was cured by a Tibetan doctor, and he was so fascinated that he wrote in German a book about, and maybe you can understand, even if it's written in German, the Tibetan medicine philosophy. He wrote this book in the 1950s. And this book, and below, in the lower line, you see already a name, Zurich. So it was published in Switzerland, in Zurich. So this is one of the connections. We go back in the lineage, and his doctor, his teacher also of Tibetan medicine, that was actually a Mongolian Buryat Amchi, Vladimir Badmaev. Here you have him around 1930. And he was practicing in Poland. He had also a son. You see the son here, the father with the son together. The son, Peter, lives even today in New York. He visited us this year again. He's over 90 years old. Was until 5 years ago he was marathon runner. Imagine that. So he was also a marathon runner in life because he came over the frontiers, Poland. After the Second World War, Europe was divided between the communist Europe and the Western Europe, so there was a lot of politics involved. And there was a third person, and this third person was the founder of PADMA company, and he read the book of the monk. He then came in contact with the family and invited this son to Zurich. And this is the story of the 1960s. So around this time, 1961, they came in contact. And then it took some time. Here we have this Karl Lutz, and you see him even with a younger, not young, but younger monk here, and I think you all know him, Dr. Jesche Dönden, in Zurich, around 1980. So the story, it's not the time today to tell all the story, but the connection from Zurich to Tibet went via a route that was historically, for the last centuries, actually the contact of Europe with Asia. It was more or less the Silk Road. From Tibet to the north, to the Lake of Baikal, to Siberia, from there to Russia, and from there to Poland and to Switzerland. If you talk today about the contact of Tibetans with Europe, many of you have relatives in Switzerland. Nobody goes this way today. We fly with the airplane. So this is the simple connection of today. But think back in time. That was not possible. Planes were very expensive at that time, and flying was not possible. So this was actually how it all came. A coincidence. As you told it, it's a lot of coincidences which are no coincidences. This is a logic in itself. So 1969, finally, Karl Lutz founded PADMA company. Our company is not named PADMA 28. That's a product. PADMA AG, that's in German. In English, you would say limited, PADMA Limited. 1969, so that, therefore, we have the 50 years. And the beginnings of working with Tibetan formulas in Switzerland 50 years ago were not, oh, Switzerland, what have you imagined? Chocolate maybe, or mountains? No, the beginnings were quite simple. Here you see a photograph of our first production site. And you see it was in a wooden shed, actually, rather simple. Of course, there was already a machine and the production manager. Some of you have visited our company. That was Rolf Linhardt, the production manager for many years. He's now retired. He was actually the son-in-law of Karl Lutz, who made the first products. 3 years later, the first product was officially recognized by the Swiss government. It was a Shiche formula. We call it PADMA Lux, according to the PADMA tradition. This formula even exists today. So during the time, of course, the layout changed, the format changed. Today it looks like this. And already I'm mentioning here, if you look very closely, and again, even if it's written in German, you will see that it is written on it. It's official, recognized by the Swiss medical authorities. And you see it is written on this in German or in French. We have 2 languages in Switzerland. Tibetan medicine. So actually by the Swiss medical authorities, it's not just any herbal formula as it could be. It is actually officially a Tibetan formula. 1978, so almost 9 years later, the second formula was there. That was PADMA 28, our most important product, a Gabor formula. And again, you see on the package, Tibetan formula, Tibetan medicine. And this is maybe the motto for us over the time: tradition, modernity, east-west, building bridges. This is the idea that actually the motivation also of my work, building those bridges between the ancient wisdom, modern science, classical description, and modern indication. This is actually the idea. So going from the idea, what is a Tibetan formula, bring it to the modern world of science, to the modern world of quality, but also transforming it or bringing it over from the Asian tradition to the people of Switzerland. We heard before, we have to connect with the people. Very good motivation indeed. And this is the more true for us. Tibetan medicine is not known to the Swiss people. They have maybe they have an idea where Tibet is. They heard about His Holiness Dalai Lama, of course. But then if you ask him, where is it, what do the people there? They might know the Swiss Tibetans, but they don't know much about the Tibetan medicine, about Lung, Tripa Becken, about all this they don't know so much. So we have to introduce this to them. We have to bridge the cultures, to bridge the knowledge. And we have to start with the knowledge the people have, not our knowledge or the knowledge of experts. Because the people on the street, they will tell you, I don't know anything about this. This is completely new for us. Quality, of course, is a big thing. We have to really confront us, or we have to work with how in Europe quality for herbal medicines is interpreted. That means we have to use modern technology without disturbing the idea of a natural medicine. So that doesn't mean that we use any chemicals. We use the natural herbs to produce the product. But still we have to use modern technology. The modern technology in a way that we go back or maybe link to the tradition. Those you have seen in the exhibition, you want to take the telephone maybe? Those who have seen in the exhibition the capsules, why did we choose capsules? Because inside is the powder without any chemicals. So actually, as you know, also Tibetan medicine started first with powders before they invented rilbus. That was all an idea how we could connect the tradition with the modern way. Also, we have to use, of course, laboratory sciences to see the cleanness, that the purity of the plants. Taste and smell is good, but it is not enough. We have modern dangers, pesticides, heavy metals, fungus. All this is possible. It is happening today, but taste and smell sometimes cannot find it. We have modern problems, so here we need a laboratory. And this is GMP. In one word, good manufacturing practice from the raw material, powder, mixture, encapsulation to the finished product. We need quality control for identity, quality, purity, and that we have the correct packaging. It's a very short, that would need not one lecture. GMP is a heavy stuff, and I think also you have some experts that are dealing with the quality control. Now, we have a product of good quality, but now we have to do research. And I think here it was very important and also very moving for me, because also we had some encouragement to bridge the tradition with the modern. I think His Holiness Dalai Lama definitely was in favor of saying, okay, do more research. But I think also others, like His Holiness the Karmapa, also they say the modernity is not an obstacle. We have to confront modernity. As we have here the picture of His Holiness Karmapa, I just wanted to give one idea. This visit to our production, you see in the background the machinery, was very moving, because you see this elder man here, more than 90 years old, a previous marathon runner. Here you have him. So this is, again, this link. The idea of research was already, let's go back in the 1970s, let's go over to the 1980s. There was, again, a first Congress, International Congress on Tibetan Medicine. This is very often used as the first international congress. Apparently already in 1983 in Venice, in Italy. You know Venice, this ancient city built in the sea. And there we had one meeting of several people. Some of them you have heard. One of this person you had heard from my side. This is this Christian monk, Krasinski, who wrote the book. Maybe you know this person, Togawa Rinpoche. And then we have, of course, the lamas and Nobu Rinpoche, who was from Italy, who organized the Dzogchen community, who organized the whole thing. We always wanted to bring and confront, and those who know Dr. Chodak, it was not always easy to convince him about modernity. Sometimes he was also skeptical, I have to say. Do I need to look through this instrument? What do I see there? But I think at least also we tried at least also to convince him that it is important to bridge this ancient and the modern. So what I say now, research goes to the Tibetan science of herbs. And I give you one example. This is on the famous formula PADMA 28 here. We have this Gabur formula, and you have a traditional description. Modern science cannot do anything with this. Heat disorders, heat which stems from poisons, fresh delayed heats, and so on and so on. A very traditional description of this formula. Actually from a formula book from a monastery in Siberia. But we can link this to modernity. These are words from our century. Inflammation, silent inflammation, circulation, blood circulation, immune function, this is modern. And we see here, this is all hidden in the ancient description. This is all there. We just have to translate it, bridge it. But these are now just words. Now we have to prove it. And this is the idea, and this is the task of science. Here, it's not the time that I go into science. I just can briefly tell you how this could be done, and those who are researchers that are working in the lab that know here you have a modern cut through the artery where it's written lumen, there the blood flows, and the vessel wall, you see the vessel wall, how the cells line the vessel, the blood vessel. Of course, it's a circle then. And we can show that in all these cells, that immune cells that are active in this vessel, we can see activity of this formula. And this is not just talking. I could now present you all the scientific papers that are published in the international literature which connect to this. Again, there is not the time, but I can tell you how we speak in modern words about the same formula you were just reading before in the Tibetan words. We talk about reduction of adhesion molecules, prevention of the oxidation of LDL cholesterol, anti-inflammatory activity, or prevent the growth of smooth muscle cells. This might be strange words for you, but this is how you can translate such an action into science. This hidden heat. The heat is inflammation, and if you exemplify on this heat, all this what is written here we have published in the literature. So this is science, and it's published, and I think I come back to you can publish in own journals of the community, but you can also publish in international journals. And I'm very happy to say that we could publish this also in international journals. And when I say we, it is not we at PADMA. We don't actually not do research ourselves. We cooperate with universities, with research institutes. So science is not a singular idea that you alone do science in the laboratory. Science you do together with others. It's cooperation. And all of you that did some publications, I know that you did this all in cooperation. That's with other doctors, with Western doctors, or traditional doctors, this together. It's very difficult to make the modern science understand the idea of Tibetan formulas because they are multi-component mixtures. Same problem has Ayurveda, same problem has TCM, Chinese medicine. It is not a single molecule. Our pharmacologists in the West, the modern pharmacologists, are trained for single substances. We have the task to make them understand that we have more than 1,000 different compounds in one formula. They will tell you what is the most important molecule. They say, no, if you take one molecule, you break up the formula, you lose the identity. We have to stick to the traditional formula. And they contain many thousands of different molecules, and they have a group. They can be grouped in flavonoids, tannins, polyphenols, and so on. There can be a certain grouping. It's multi-component. So again, for this Gabor formula, PADMA 28, which can be described as a cooling formula because it's the Gabor, but in Western terms we can say this anti-inflammatory action profile. And we have the many plants inside, flowers, fruits, spices, roots, leaves, a mineral, camphor, and they act in synergy. So I think synergy research, and we were speaking with the next speaker, will maybe touch the topic of synergy, but this is the next topic for the future, will be synergy research. This is actually the coming trend, how we can understand traditional formulas. And they have this multi-target activity. And to finalize this idea of modern research to you, I give you now an idea how we even have to transform this synergy research, because we talk about a network in our body. From a Western point of view, the human body is built up from the physiologic level with the organs, the cells, and within the cells then the cell organs, genetics. This is the hierarchy of the body. And we have to fit in every formula in this hierarchy if we want to communicate with research. Circulatory problems, the blood system, the anti-inflammatory, even down to the genetic level. And I tell you, this is possible, and it is possible to link it to tradition. You see, the lung fits in well, the hidden fever fits in well, and even the tripper could fit in there. So it is possible, but it is not simple. And sometimes there's hardship to reach such a point that you can understand this. So what I told you so far, okay, we did the research, we did the quality, and now let's go back to Switzerland, what the government said about these endeavors. Here we are in Switzerland. No yaks, but you know, in Switzerland we have the cow. And 2019 brought a new development. Because on the 1st of January 2019, a new law for medicines came into force in Switzerland. This new law, unfortunately, as I said to you, language in Switzerland is German and French, so you see here also some German words, but I tried to translate them as good as possible. You see, in the year 2016, the law was adopted by the parliament, but 2019 it came into force. So we had 3 years' time to bring it into force. And in this medicinal law, it is for the first time in Europe that Asian medicines are mentioned. So also there, Asian medicines are mentioned. And of course, whenever you hear a short touch to politics, whenever you hear Asian medicine, Asia, there's one question for the Tibetans. Where are we? We are no country. Where are we? So that was, I think, then one could use the word fight, but there's a modern word for this. This is called lobbying. So you have to work with the politicians, with the officials. What does it mean, Asian medicine? How do you interpret Asian medicine? And here, our drug authority, the Swiss drug authority, it's called Swiss Medic. They said, what is Asian medicine? And they said, Asian medicine, for us in Switzerland, is Chinese, is Tibetan, and Ayurvedic medicine. And they even say Tibetan medicine are medicines containing herbal, mineral, or animal components composed and administered according to the understanding of Tibetan medicine. This is the definition that we have in Switzerland for Tibetan formulas for Tibetan medicines. Here you have it in German. Small comment, of course, that means any precious materials very difficult, but at least herbal and mineral, and to some extent animal, is under the definition of the Swiss Medical Authority. And it is more or less logic that Chinese, Tibet, and India are all mentioned in the same name. So, in the same sentence. So that means we have actually equilibrium there. Nobody is better, but also nobody is under the one, so we are brothers and sisters for Asian medicine. This is Switzerland. Do you know where Switzerland is? Where is Switzerland? That's the European Union. That's not Europe, that's the European Union. We are not in the European Union. There's another country which is now very much in the news, which does not want to be in the European Union. Maybe we should mention the word Brexit. So the British also want to go out. Switzerland is since a long time out. And we have agreements with the European Union, so we are not so nervous about this. But the British want to step out in one moment. But Switzerland is out of the European Union and can make its own medical law. The European Union is one big entity with states, like India with states, and has one medical law. This is a different one. And there, this we have to still to convince them. So the Swiss example maybe can convince them. But Switzerland, we have 8 million people, and the European Union has about 400 million people. So it's a bit uphill task to convince them from us. But still we can work. But to give you already an idea, it will not be easy. This is the number of herbal medicines according to the different countries of the European Union. These are the abbreviations. You don't need to read the fine print, because you see already The UK, Germany, Poland, and Austria have the most herbal products, and there are other countries which have almost no herbal product. The UK will leave the European Union, so it remains with Germany, Poland, and Austria. So actually, these are also the countries where PADMA is working at the moment, because these are countries where the state is in favor for herbal medicines. The other countries, unfortunately, they are not very much for herbal medicines and therefore also not very much for traditional medicines. This is often forgotten when one talks about Europe, because you think Europe is one. That's not true. This only refers to the official recognition. It does nothing say about the population. The people might still be in favor, but the politicians and bureaucrats of these countries are not in favor for Tibet, for herbal medicine, and therefore also not for, maybe also not for Tibetan or Asian medicine. So this shows also why we are focusing on Germany, on Poland, and on Austria, because these are the countries where herbal medicine has a strong standing also from the officials. And others, of course, we also try to work. Yeah, still Switzerland. Asian formulas are now part of the official system of medicines. They are integrated in the national medical pharmaceutical system. That means we have still continue to work, because once you have a law and you have the provisions, we have to work with the authorities. We worked already hard for this recognition, certainly the last 10 years, even 20 years. But all the work of the years before should not be forgotten. And so I think I'm really proud to present you that I think as part of the Tibetan medical community, of the Sowa Rigpa community, and the Sowa Rigpa Day here in New Delhi, I think we can be proud that also in other countries we were successful to get recognition. Maybe it's also a kind of a role model for discussions here in India with Sowa Rigpa under the auspices of Ayush. I want to conclude with the Medicine Buddha. I think the wisdom of the ancient forefathers, this tradition, I hope I could show you that we are always looking also back to the tradition, that we really want to connect, but we live in Europe, where Asia is not well known, Tibet is not well known. We want to make it better known. We have to touch to the people, we have to communicate with the people, and the good thing is that Tibetan medicines, Tibetan formulas work. They help really the people, and this is the motivation. If they would not work, there would be no need to talk about them. There would be no need even to do any science or quality. But if you once hear from a patient, this formula really has helped me, then this is the best motivation that you ever can get. Thank you.
So thank you, Dr. Herbert Schwabl, for your wonderful presentation. So we all have just now noticed that there was a history, that Tibetan medicine, the term Tibetan medicine, was not bought by the Tibetan people. The term Tibetan medicine was given with full respect, full honor, long back before we Tibetans came into exile in India. For example, the Tibetan philosophy book was written in the year 1953. That was the time when we were in Tibet, when the Chinese didn't occupy Tibet. So there were various kinds of research and works done on Tibetan medicine, on the medicine that came from Tibet, and therefore the very word or the very name Tibetan medicine was given to us by the foreigners, especially from the Russian side, from the Siberian researchers, and then back in Switzerland and the European countries. So therefore, Tibetan medicine is gaining its own popularity not because of certain things that we are doing this kind of publicity for a commercial reason, but because Tibetan medicine has a strong foundation of a philosophy. For example, the synergy aspect. The synergy concept, as well as the homeostasis concept and various other concepts, are the key concepts of Tibetan medicine, which are still unexplored. Various kinds of problems that we face these days that we don't know how to name them. For example, in the name of a syndromes, are well recognized and identified in our ancient medical texts such as Nyushi. So therefore, if we really try to keep our ancient knowledge and philosophy and ancient wisdom according to its principles, then there's a way. And our Swiss PADMA company, you have proved that Tibetan medicine, which was prepared according to the Tibetan formula, has proved to the Swiss authorities that this is worth for recognition. So therefore, they have explicitly named Tibetan medicine by giving this recognition. PADMA, for example, has published several kinds of research. For example, that the PADMA has a pro-apoptic activities in treating acute lymphatic leukemia. That was published. So therefore, we have very strong research papers that has a strong impact factors publishing in various important journals, so which we must be proud of. And even these few research papers are sufficient enough than the research papers which are not worth. So therefore, we have to go further in the future research collaborations and to work together to bring our Tibetan medicine to be recognized not just in Switzerland but also in all other European countries. And also, even in India, we must now indulge ourselves in more research activities so that this Tibetan medicine, or Sovarikpa, which was recognized by Government of India in 2010, gets its due recognition in due time, so that we Tibetans and people in the Himalayan region, by the practice of Sovarikpa, can contribute substantially in all parts of India and then gradually all over the world. With this, I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Herbert Schwabl, coming all the way from Switzerland. And I would also like to, if you permit me, would like to, on all of your behalf, because this is the year 2019 is 50 years of Golden Jubilee celebration. So I would like to congratulate you on behalf of all the participants. Thank you so much.
And we also would like to request Dr. Namgyal Kusala to give him the appreciation memento on behalf of CCTM. And there is another memento which we would like to present to Dr. Herbert Schwabl for sponsoring CCTM in this special event of Sovarikpa, first Sovarikpa Day. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sorry, one more.
Yeah. Another one.
Thank you. Thank you so much. With this, we would also like to take the opportunity to thank Dr. Pemba Singla. Please come on stage to take the thank you memento for sponsoring the free medicine for the free consultation. So sponsors, we would like.
Yes.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Tenzin Chimbala is not present here, but he has sponsored the creation of Medicine Buddha Mandala, Zen Mandala at Tibet House. So thank you all for bearing with us. Thank you so much.